That I had for the written word, I converted and translated that into actually acting out so much of what we read. I was very fortunate. I started teaching Shakespeare at a very early age. Initially, I taught Shakespeare with a different frame of mind altogether. He was one of the greatest writers ever. Looking at him and his work as classical, canonical texts, I was completely in awe of him. But as I grew older, and mind you, I was one of the youngest teachers ever to be inducted into the Punjab University. I was only 21 when I started teaching. Don't you dare calculate my age after that. However, the period of awe I had to leave behind very quickly, because the very heterogeneous nature and the dynamics of the class that I confronted each day wouldn't allow me to stay in awe of the language and of the bard and of the English tradition, as it were. I had students coming from Chak Jhumra and with no socks in their shoes, and there they were, the last 2 years of their degree, studying texts written by a man called Shakespeare, who'd lived hundreds of years ago in a country that they could even just dream about. How was I going to get through to them? So then I started a search of how Shakespeare could be relevant for us. And believe me, it was very easy. Because, of course, he was talking about universal truths. He was talking about characters that you and I face without us knowing it. They're very Shakespearean in many of their aspects. We face them every day. We come across greed, lust, passion, love, all the human emotions all the time. And it's just that Shakespeare is putting it into a different context. And then one single day, you know, like in a cartoon thing, you get this little bulb lighting up. There was a remark that one of my students made. And that really, usne dimag ki batti roshan kar di. I was teaching them Hamlet, one of the most difficult texts possible, because there's all this about the Old Testament and the New Testament, and there's this division of the two worlds, and one is a vengeful world, the other is a Christian world, and all these things mixed up, and Protestantism and Catholicism and so on. It was really getting very heavy for most of the students. And there I was trying to explain to them how much of a sin it was for the younger brother to have married the widow of his elder brother, and how Hamlet is so upset by all that has happened. His father dead, a mother married, the whole state sinned against, and so on. And one of my boys, who'd stayed silent throughout, just put up a wee bit of a hand. I said, yes, because he'd never spoken up in class. And he stood up in his sockless shoes and he said, Madam, what is the big deal? All the time it's happening in my village. Elder brother dies, younger brother marries Bhabhi. Big deal. Now, of course, it solicited a wonderful guffaw of laughter in the classroom. But I tell you, they say from the mouth of babes, that's what struck the bell. And I said, yes, this is the way to go about it. To make Shakespeare meaningful as far as local custom, local tradition, local life is concerned. To indigenize Shakespeare. And that's what gave me the key. And then there was no looking back. And then I could see the spark in my students' eyes from trying to avoid making eye contact and shuffling their feet and so on. Suddenly, Hamlet became a story in Punjab. And that gave me the key. And then really there was no looking back. Because Ophelia, all the girls, straight out of the classroom, dominating father, possessive brother, someone she loves with pure innocence, discarding her, setting her aside, lost, confused, losing her balance. It happens all the time in our society. We've still got patriarchy reigning supreme. We've still got young women confused and frightened and being pushed into relationships that they don't want to be into. So what's the difference? It's just finding the key. And I think that young man, bless his soul, gave me the key to how Shakespeare should be taught in the subcontinent. Because don't forget, we've had in this region, we've had a very long affair with Shakespeare. He's very familiar to the subcontinent. He's been translated. We've had plays like Safed Khoon, which is King Lear. We've had, this is Agha Hashar, no less. We've had wonderful films made on Shakespeare's texts. We've got Omkara, we've got Makbool, we've got other films.
And Romeo and Juliet.
Ram Leela ki Ras Leela and so on, a kind of tinkering around with the Romeo-Juliet idea. So we've been fascinated by the stories of passion and vengefulness and violence that Shakespeare's world propagates. And it shouldn't really be difficult. But I think that most school teachers, along with university teachers, find Shakespeare so daunting because they compartmentalize him and put him into one of those authors like Milton, who is to be treated like his name is hallowed and he ought to be taught in a particular professorial manner. But that kills the intention, because Shakespeare never wrote plays for the classroom.
True.
He wrote them to be played. And I suspect, because one has become a trifle cynical as one grows older, he didn't really put in all the meaning that we critics put into his texts when he was writing them. If you're writing a play every 14 days, you're not really putting all those cosmic ideas into a play. And we tend to do that later. But fine, that's fine with me.